Officially trade deadline week, and things are heating up around the NHL. There's plenty to talk about, and we're going to break all of that down here on the latest on the fourth period. It's presented by CCM Hockey. I'm your host, Kate Pedersen, and with me is David Pagnotta. He's in Toronto right now after watching the Maple Leafs and the San Jose Sharks. But Dave, we've got to start tonight over on the island because they fell 4-0 to the New York Rangers, and you have to think that this was sort of a tipping point moment, that maybe that for sale sign is officially going up on the lawn. And we did talk earlier in the year about some of the names, Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri being maybe up for trade. And now we've got to think that Lou Lamoriello is doing some digging around, and he's going to try to make something happen here.
Yeah, I think so, Kate. What I can tell you is, speaking to sources across the league, the Islanders were engaged and had started trade talks involving some of their players. I believe that includes Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri earlier today. And those talks will continue throughout the week. The loss pretty much, effectively, puts them into the seller's market. They will continue those discussions involving those players. There has been interest in others, including Jean-Gabriel Pagnotta as well. So perhaps that might be an avenue. But I can tell you both Palmieri and Nelson are expected to be in play. They have a game on Tuesday against Winnipeg. I don't think that's going to matter much based on what happened earlier this evening in their loss to the Rangers. But it certainly seems like the New York Islanders are going to be open for business to a certain extent. There are teams that have interest in Nelson specifically, like Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado. Wouldn't be surprised to see Vegas, perhaps the team behind me, Toronto, getting in the mix as well. But trade talks started today, formally from the sounds of things, and they will continue this week. So expect something coming out of the island before the deadline.
All right. Well, in Florida, you had mentioned it at the end of Four Nations that it was likely that Matthew Tkachuk would miss the rest of the regular season. Now, GM Bill Zito coming out today and confirming that, and also putting him on the LTIR, which frees up over $8 million in cap space. Now, they just made a splash acquiring Seth Jones, but you have to think with that kind of money available, they're looking to make another splash.
It certainly wouldn't surprise anybody if Bill Zito gets aggressive and makes another impact addition for this roster. Now, he is looking for a goaltender to kind of, add a little bit of depth as they go into the playoffs. They recalled Chris Driedger, so he's going to be part of the mix with Bobrovsky. But they are looking at different avenues in that. They're looking for a veteran presence, but they're also looking a little bit younger as well, even though it may be somebody in the pending UFA range, maybe someone in their late 20s as opposed to a veteran piece in their mid-30s. So goaltending definitely one, but as you said, from a splash perspective, Florida has a lot of flexibility now. It's going to be interesting to see how they maneuver the deadline over these next, by the time we're recording this, 80 some odd hours. So we'll see what they do, but they've put everybody on notice that Florida could make another big move here ahead of Friday's deadline.
We're already feeling the effects of this week and how crazy it's going to get here. It's late tonight, but we are still rolling. And you know what? We've got to talk about Boston because Brandon Carlo, we added him to that trade watch list on the fourth period, and it seemed that after that, there was a little bit of buzz picking up about him. Do you think Boston is planning on moving him? Are there any other forwards that they might be looking to move?
Yeah, Brandon Carlo is a player that Boston is listening on. And according to Anthony DeMarco, Calgary is one of the teams in the mix that have at least inquired anyway with respect to his availability. He's got a few more years left on his contract. He has some no-trade protection, so there will be a bit of a say here. But with how things have gone in Boston and how the blue line is looking for this club moving forward, it seems like they're willing to listen on Brandon Carlo, in addition to, as we know, pending unrestricted free agents, Justin Brazeau and Trent Frederic. Both of those guys are very much in play, a lot of interest in them. We could see something happen with Carlo. If we don't see it by the deadline, it's likely that those discussions will carry out in the summer, perhaps around the draft.
All right, well, over in Vancouver, the latest player that we're talking about is Brock Boeser. We're hearing that contract negotiations for an extension haven't really moved much. We know that they're looking to add up front. So is this a scenario where it's realistic that we see them deal Brock Boeser between now and Friday?
I think it's a possibility. I mean, everything's in play for them in this situation, and it's what everybody knows. Either you sign them, you trade them, or you just hold on to them as your own rental. But based on how conversations have gone, with a 5-year offer on the table that was declined. He wants 7 or 8 years. It doesn't look like anything has bridged. And as of this evening, I can tell you it hasn't. So right now, he is in play. Canucks will listen, but they're not aggressively trying to get rid of him. They've wanted to add up front most of the season. They've been looking for a scoring winger for some time. They're also now in the market and have been after the JT Miller trade for a center as well. So they're going to look to make something happen here. They want to add to this club. They don't want to put themselves in a position where it negatively impacts their push for the playoffs, because that's where their eyes are right now.
All right. Well, one other team that's looking to add up front is Columbus. They're also trying to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. So what's the pulse check there? What do you have going on in Columbus?
Well, they were one of the teams that were in on Gustav Nyquist before Nashville traded him to Minnesota. They'd like to bring in a forward that can supply some depth in their mid six, some extra punch and scoring in their middle six. So that's an area that they're going to be looking at over the next few days. Mathieu Olivier, we spoke with Don Waddell on the pregame show at the Stadium Series on SiriusXM NHL Network Radio. He acknowledged that there was a deal coming soon, an extension coming soon with Mathieu Olivier. So expect that to happen in the next 24 hours or so. By the sounds of things, they've made progress to putting pen to paper on a deal. Ivan Provorov, not so much, but they really like him. He's a great guy for this team, and in the room, they might hold on to him. They're probably likely to hold on to him and try to get him locked into a contract after the fact. But if they can add a mid-six forward to this group, they've got a lot of cap space to play with. That's something that Don Waddell would like to do, and the Olivier deal should be announced in the not-too-distant future.
Okay, well, I can't not ask you about Mikko Rantanen. What is his status in Carolina, and do you think he could be dealt between now and Friday?
Carolina's not tipping their hat at this point, but it does sound, talking to people around the league, the guess, and you can argue somewhat educated guess, is that Carolina will entertain calls to move him. No guarantee they do it, but they will explore. If they know for sure they will not be able to get him signed, they're going to look at that, the possibility. It's totally possible as well they hold on to him and worry about things in the offseason after the fact, and see what he can do with this club come playoff time. But talking to a variety of people across the NHL today, there is a strong belief that Carolina will at the very least listen to what other teams have to say with respect to Rantanen.
Well, I asked you the other day about the temperature. Where would you say the temperature is at this point?
Yeah, going into
We're
the
a couple
weekend.
of days, give or take, late Monday night after midnight.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
It took some time to heat up again. And talking to managers and agents and all kinds of people around the league last week was very quiet. But going into the weekend, things definitely picked up. It's heated up a lot more today. And 3+ days away from the deadline, as we're doing this, things will definitely start to pick up by the sounds of things on Tuesday.
All right. Well, we'll stay on top of it. Thanks so much, Dave. And thanks to everyone for watching. It's the latest on the fourth period, presented by CCM Hockey.